exceptions to the vaccine rollout plan that we announced 2 weeks ago. We've confirmed quite strict and a very carefully considered criteria for early vaccinations for people who need to travel outside of New Zealand on compassionate grounds or for reasons of national significance. A very high threshold for early access to vaccines has been set, which will balance compassion with the need to avoid potential queue jumping ahead of at-risk groups where there is no strong justification for that. Even before people will be considered for early access to vaccines, they'll need to satisfy a series of criteria, including being a New Zealand citizen, resident or visa holder, needing to travel before the 31st of August, and having already made arrangements to return to New Zealand after their travel. They will also need to ensure, as far as practically possible, that they are able to receive both doses of the vaccine before their scheduled departure. The compassionate grounds that will be considered for travel overseas include needing to provide critical care and protection for a dependent, accessing critical medical care that is not available in New Zealand, and visiting an immediate family member who is dying. It does not include reuniting with family, attending a funeral or memorial service, or attending a school or university. National significance overseas travel will include representing New Zealand in an official capacity, at significant international events, and in an official non-government capacity. The key yardstick here is that people are travelling in an official capacity and ensuring their participation is in our national interests. We expect these requests will be made by the appropriate agency or association on behalf of individuals, not by individuals themselves. That's for the latter category. It will not include private or recreational travel. The final consideration is the level of risk travellers will be exposed to around Covid-19 in their destination country. Underlying these decisions is a fundamental recognition that while there are legitimate and urgent reasons to travel overseas, it's also in our interests to ensure that New Zealanders are protected against Covid-19 to the best extent possible for when they return home to New Zealand.
Does this mean you'll vaccinate the black caps?
Look, they'll have to make an application. It will depend on what sort of events they were participating in as to whether they fit the national interest criteria. But certainly, our expectation is that the Olympians would be eligible under the national interest criteria, and a national sports team participating in a significant event would also meet those criteria. My understanding is that we're talking about a few hundred potential athletes and sports people who might fit the category. So it's not a large group, but certainly where that national interest or national significance criteria is met, then yes, they would be able to.
I guess the key word there is significant, isn't it? Because the World Test Championship and the Olympics and Paralympics are obviously significant, but is canoe polo, is tramping, what does it matter whether you're in a big sport or a small sport?
Yes, it has to meet that national significance criteria. So obviously those sports that everybody is hanging out to watch on television, for example, are more likely to hit the national significance criteria than a school sports team going to compete with someone else around the world.